What you are about to hear right now isn't just another standard royal rumor whispering through the cold, drafty corridors of Windsor Castle. It is an absolute, catastrophic earthquake that has just ripped through the very foundation of the British monarchy, shattering every single rule of succession, power, and loyalty we thought we knew. Right now, as you watch this, behind tightly locked, heavily guarded double doors, Buckingham Palace is in a state of complete, unadulterated panic. King Charles III has officially taken the pen to paper and signed an unprecedented, highly controversial legal instrument known as the Palace Order, a terrifyingly absolute grant of power that hands Princess Anne a level of formal, constitutional authority that has literally no modern precedent. This is not a ceremonial nod. This is not a polite family title to honor her years of service. This is a total, unyielding surrender of direct sovereign control to the one woman who has spent 50 years silently watching from the shadows. Sources deep inside the palace legal team report that Queen Camilla was left completely blindsided, weeping in sheer disbelief and burning fury as the realization sank in. Her informal influence and power network have been systematically dismantled in a single, cold, calculated stroke. The crown isn't just shifting, it has exploded. And the secret, terrifying details hidden within this order will leave you absolutely breathless. To truly understand the sheer, unbridled fury currently tearing the royal household apart at its very seams, you have to look back at the simmering, decades-long power struggle that was always destined to detonate. For over 50 years, Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, has been the ultimate, unyielding backbone of the British monarchy. While other members of the royal family were constantly caught in relentless media storms, catastrophic divorces, explosive tell-all interviews, and highly damaging public scandals, and walked the straight and narrow path. She completed thousands upon thousands of grueling official engagements year after year without ever uttering a single word of complaint, self-pity, or personal ambition. She was the silent soldier, the unsung powerhouse working quietly in the long shadows of her mother, Queen Elizabeth II, and single-handedly holding the institutional weight of the entire sovereign structure on her shoulders. But behind that stony, disciplined, and utterly impenetrable exterior lay a growing, simmering frustration. For decades, and watched in silent disdain as the monarchy she devoted her entire adult life to protecting began to fracture from within. She watched the endless public relations disasters, the chaotic internal infighting, the catastrophic fallouts between brothers, and most importantly, the rising, unchecked influence of those who viewed the crown not as a sacred, selfless duty, but as a shiny platform for personal leverage and social elevation. Deep inside the palace, it was an open, poorly kept secret that Princess Anne and Queen Camilla operated on a level of frostiness that could instantly freeze the River Thames. Their relationship was never one of warm sisterhood or mutual respect. It was a cold, calculated, highly tense truce defined by sharp glances, rigid polite protocols, and an underlying, ferocious battle for King Charles's ear. When King Charles ascended to the throne, the internal dynamic shifted dangerously. Charles, facing the immense weight of a new reign alongside daunting, deeply alarming, and highly personal health battles, found himself navigating one of the most turbulent institutional periods in modern history. The palace was virtually drowning in chaos. From the unending, toxic fallout surrounding Prince Andrew's legal troubles to the delicate, high-stakes handling of Princess Diana's sensitive historical legacy, the royal household was burning from the inside out. Meanwhile, Camilla's inner circle was rapidly expanding its reach, quietly making calculated moves behind closed doors to secure power, influence, and long-term control over key palace operations, financial decisions, and prestigious heritage assets. For months, leaked internal memos and whisper reports from high-level palace courtiers suggested that the atmosphere inside Clarence House and Buckingham Palace had reached an absolute boiling point. Prince William was stepping up, taking on a dominant, towering role as the heir apparent, but his elevated position was fraught with immense political risk. Every single move William made was endlessly dissected by the global press as a sign of transition, sparking relentless, damaging speculation that Charles was being sidelined, managed, or deemed unfit to rule. The crown was effectively paralyzed. It desperately needed a ruthless, unshakable force. Someone who could step directly into the line of fire, make brutal institutional cuts, sweep away palace corruption, and wield absolute, indisputable authority without inviting a catastrophic succession crisis. That is precisely when the secret, high-stakes meetings began. Deep within the private, heavily fortified quarters of Balmoral and Sandringham, far away from the prying eyes of royal aides, PR spin doctors, and even Queen Camilla herself, King Charles began meeting privately with his most trusted legal advisors and his fierce sister. Over 3 tense, agonizing weeks, draft after draft of a dangerous, historic legal document was prepared in absolute secrecy. Charles knew his window of opportunity to secure the long-term future of the monarchy was rapidly closing. He knew that if he did not act immediately to centralize authority in someone whose loyalty was 100% absolute and beyond question, the institution would collapse into warring, self-destructive factions after his reign. And was the only logical choice. She possessed the seniority, the encyclopedic institutional knowledge, the total respect of Prince William, and a 5-decade track record of disciplined, unsentimental royal service. Giving her formal power was not just an honoring of her legacy. It was an urgent operational necessity to save the monarchy from self-destruction. The stage was meticulously set, the trap was quietly laid, and the moment of total betrayal was about to be unleashed upon an utterly unsuspecting palace household. The explosion finally happened on a cold, rain-slicked Tuesday evening inside a heavily guarded, unmapped drawing room deep within Windsor Castle. There were no flashing cameras, no official press releases, and absolutely no public fanfare. Attended only by the king's private secretary, his principal legal advisor, and princess and herself, King Charles officially executed the historic palace order. The very second the heavy royal seal pressed into the thick parchment, a massive, irreversible shockwave rippled through the royal establishment. The scope of authority granted to Princess Anne was not just surprising, it was genuinely staggering, instantly stripping key figures of their operational reach and centralizing control in a way that left senior courtiers paralyzed with disbelief. The document granted and 4 absolute, sweeping categories of institutional power that effectively rewrote the rules of engagement inside the royal household. First, she was handed complete, unchallengeable oversight over the royal household's most sensitive heritage assets, private estates, and crown properties. And no longer needs to ask King Charles for permission. She can initiate, conduct, and finalize sweeping audits, financial freezes, and operational purges entirely on her own authority as a principal. Second, her standing as a counselor of state was formally expanded to a level never before seen in modern constitutional history, giving her the legal standing to override standard household decisions and execute executive mandates. Third, she was granted absolute control over the classification, preservation, and controlled release of sensitive historical archives, placing the highly controversial, deeply secretive Diana Correspondence Review entirely under her command. And fourth, she was empowered to represent the sovereign in official capacities with full, binding authority. When Anne speaks, she speaks not as a proxy or a placeholder, but with the full, unyielding weight of the crown. When news of the signed order leaked to Queen Camilla just hours later, the palace devolved into utter, unadulterated chaos. Insiders report that Camilla did not just express concern. She went into a state of absolute, unbridled fury that terrified junior staff members. She was reportedly informed not by her husband in person, but by a senior courtier delivering a brief, icy formal memorandum on a silver tray. A leaked internal text message allegedly sent from a panicked palace staffer to a high-ranking courtier read, "The Queen is hysterical. She was completely locked out of the loop. She is demanding an immediate audience with the king right now. Security is literally clearing the entire residential wing." Camilla stormed directly into the king's private study, confronting Charles in a dramatic, tear-streaked showdown that could be heard through the heavy oak doors. She demanded to know why she had been completely bypassed, why her inner circle's access to royal property management was being subjected to immediate audits, and whether Charles understood that he had just handed his sister the keys to the entire kingdom. The shouting match escalated rapidly, with Camilla pointing out that her standing as queen consort was being publicly humiliated and institutionally undermined. But then came the first horrific twist, a revelation so terrifying and unexpected that it left Camilla standing in complete, breathless silence. As Camilla wept, yelled, and pleaded for the order to be rescinded, King Charles sat in cold, agonizing silence before looking up and delivering a devastating blow. He quietly revealed that this palace order was not just a temporary operational measure designed for his reign or his current health battles. It contained a hidden, irreversible clause. The order was legally crafted to survive beyond his death, binding Prince William's future reign and locking Princess Anne's absolute authority into the constitutional bedrock of the monarchy permanently. Camilla realized in that horrifying, gut-wrenching moment that she hadn't just lost a temporary political battle. She and her inner circle had been completely, permanently written out of the future power structure of the British monarchy forever. Word of the secret palace order exploded across the globe like a thermonuclear detonation, completely shattering the digital landscape and driving international news outlets into an absolute frenzy. Within mere minutes of the first leak, hashtags like #RoyalCrisis, #PrincessAnne, #PalaceOrder, and #ShadowQueen were trending #1 worldwide across X, Instagram, and TikTok. The public narrative instantly shifted from quiet curiosity to total, unadulterated shock as royal experts, constitutional lawyers, and media commentators rushed live on air to dissect the terrifying, game-changing implications of Anne's elevated status. Supposed leaks from deep within the UK legal community began flooding Reddit threads and independent investigative platforms, claiming that King Charles had effectively executed a soft regency, right under the public's nose. A viral thread posted by a prominent royal investigative account racked up millions of impressions within hours, stating, "Make no mistake about what happened behind closed doors. Charles is just crowned, and as the Shadow Queen of the United Kingdom. She now holds the unquestioned legal power to freeze private royal assets, strip household access, audit historic properties, and lock down sensitive archives." Camilla's entire inner circle has been completely decimated overnight. The backlash from within high society circles and traditionalist royal factions was immediate, ferocious, and deeply chaotic. Whispers began circulating that senior advisors within Camilla's camp were frantically holding emergency late-night consultations with constitutional scholars, desperately trying to find a legal loophole to challenge a palace order issued directly by a sitting monarch. But the legal consensus was brutally, undeniable clear. A palace order properly executed by the sovereign is virtually irreversible without the king's explicit, uncoerced consent. Camilla's allies were trapped in a legal fortress designed by the king himself. As the public turmoil reached a fever pitch, celebrities, political figures, and international commentators began aggressively taking sides. High-profile media personalities released explosive emergency podcasts questioning the king's physical health, demanding immediate transparency from Buckingham Palace, and accusing the royal household of hiding a massive internal civil war. The atmosphere outside the palace gates was suffocatingly tense. Crowds of bewildered tourists and passionate royalists gathered in the rain, staring up at the stone balcony, desperate to know what monstrous drama was unfolding behind those cold, silent windows. Then dropped the second, mind-bending twist, a revelation so terrifying that it turned this immense royal drama completely upside down. A high-level, anonymous whistleblower from within the royal archives leaked a series of encrypted documents to an international news outlet. The leak revealed that Princess Anne's very first official act under her new, sweeping powers was not an estate audit or a public engagement. The exact second the ink dried on a palace order, and immediately invoked her absolute authority as a principal to seize, seal, and lock down the restricted, deeply classified vaults containing the private correspondence between Princess Diana, King Charles, and senior royal courtiers from the turbulent 1990s. Why did it move with such terrifying, cold precision? Because hidden within those sealed, long-forgotten files was a buried, explosive secret, a recorded directive that threatens to permanently destroy the reputation and legal standing of a senior royal family member forever. And Princess Anne now holds the only key to the vault. The fallout from Princess Anne's sudden seizure of the royal archives, paired with her unprecedented palace order, unleashed an absolute media tsunami that completely shattered the international news landscape. Major global networks, digital streaming platforms, and print tabloids instantly abandoned their scheduled programming, pivoting 24/7 coverage to what was quickly branded as the single greatest constitutional shockwave in modern British history. Major UK newspapers splashed dramatic, stark headlines across their front pages. The Daily Mail ran a towering lead. The Shadow Queen strikes and seizes Diana vaults in palace coup. Meanwhile, The Sun published a massive, full-page graphic depicting a chessboard with Princess Anne's piece towering over a fallen queen consort Camilla, headlined, "Checkmate. Camilla frozen out as Anne takes the crown's greatest secrets." Broadcasters like the BBC and Sky News brought in emergency panels of constitutional experts, former royal security chiefs, and seasoned historians to debate whether King Charles's unprecedented move constituted a brilliant stabilization effort or an unconstitutional consolidation of royal power. On television, prominent commentators did not hold back. During an explosive, high-strung debate on a top-rated evening talk show, a veteran royal correspondent shouted over his fellow panelist, "We are witnessing the complete rewriting of House of Windsor history in real time. Princess Anne isn't just managing administrative estates. She has just grabbed the legal keys to the kingdom's most dangerous cabinet. If those Diana letters contain what palace insiders claim, this single palace order could unravel reputations that took 30 years to rebuild. The reaction across global social media platforms was pure, unbridled insanity. TikTok and YouTube were engulfed by millions of creator breakdowns analyzing every micro-expression from the royal family's recent public appearances. Fan edits of Princess and, set to dramatic cinematic scores, went viral with tens of millions of views, hailing her as the ultimate duty-bound royal, who stepped up to protect the monarchy's core. The hashtag #ProtectPrincess surged to #1 globally, while critics and anti-monarchist groups used the chaotic internal infighting as fuel to demand total parliamentary oversight of crown finances and historic records. Financial and publishing industries were hit by an immediate, seismic shockwave. Top publishing houses in London and New York reportedly entered frantic bidding wars, throwing multi-million-dollar offers at anyone remotely connected to the royal household who could offer a glimpse into the contents of the locked Diana vaults. Media executives scrambled to fast-track emergency documentaries, while global entertainment studios immediately greenlit script rewrites for upcoming royal drama series to capture the terrifying intensity of the Anne Camilla power struggle. Yet behind the staggering public spectacle and industry frenzy, a far colder, vastly more terrifying political reality was quietly unfolding inside the corridors of power. While the public cheered Princess Anne's firm, unyielding grip on royal duty, key figures inside the government were quietly realizing that the Shadow Queen now held an absolute, unchallengeable veto over the secrets of the state. Final twist and cliffhanger. Inside the deepest subterranean vaults of Windsor Castle, bathed in the harsh white glow of security floodlights, Princess Anne stood entirely alone. The heavy, centuries-old iron door, unlocked for the first time in over 30 years, creaked softly on its hinges. Armed sovereign guards stood posted at the end of the stone corridor, instructed under absolute royal protocol to let no one pass. Not the Prime Minister, not the Queen Consort, and not even the Prince of Wales himself. Before her rested the black leather dispatch box stamped with the gold monogram of the late Queen Elizabeth II. Inside lay the long-rumored, highly classified Diana files, the raw, unedited correspondence and hidden tapes recorded during the darkest hours of the 1990s royal succession crisis. For decades, palace courtiers believed these records contained nothing more than painful personal letters and bitter marital breakdowns. Princess Anne pulled on a pair of white archival gloves, lifted the brass latch, and opened the lid. As her eyes scanned the yellowed parchment, the true, terrifying reality of King Charles's palace order slammed home with devastating force. The secret held inside this vault was not about Queen Camilla. It was not about past personal scandals, estate finances, or historical rivalries. It was a codicil, a legally binding, hidden constitutional mandate drafted personally by Queen Elizabeth II decades ago, locked away until a monarch faced a sovereign crisis. The document revealed that the palace order Charles signed on that rain-slicked Tuesday night was never actually Charles's idea. It was an automated constitutional tripwire set by the late Queen herself. Under the terms written in the document, if the sitting sovereign ever faced severe, debilitating health battles that risked operational paralysis, full executive governance over the royal household, private crown assets, and historic archives would not pass to the Queen Consort or through standard parliamentary regency acts. It defaulted instantly and unconditionally to Princess Anne, granting her sole, absolute custody over the monarchy's continuity. Anne turned the page, and her breath hitched in her throat. Bound to the back of the decree was a second, sealed envelope stamped with a fresh red wax seal. The handwriting across the front was unmistakably recent, written in the frail, steady hand of King Charles III, just days before the order was executed. She broke the seal, unfolded the single sheet of heavy cream paper, and read the final, horrifying directive. Charles had not just empowered her to protect the crown's past secrets, he had handed her the ultimate, explosive mechanism to reshape its future. The letter instructed and that within 48 hours, she was legally required to invoke the final unread clause of the palace order, a clause so radical, so unprecedented, that it would instantly strip 3 senior royals of their remaining titles, override standard succession protocols for crown property management, and force an immediate, historic restructuring of the entire royal family before the month was out. A sharp tap echoed down the stone corridor. Anne's private secretary stepped to the threshold of the vault, his face pale, holding an encrypted satellite phone. "Ma'am," he whispered, his voice trembling uncontrollably. "It's the king. He says the time has run out. He needs to know. Are you ready to execute Clause 7? Princess Anne looked down at the paper in her hand, then slowly closed the leather box with a heavy, ominous snap. She turned to face the corridor, her eyes cold, steady, and unyielding. Tell the king, Princess Anne said quietly, that the Shadow Queen is ready. What happens next? The clock is ticking down on the 48-hour deadline. Clause 7 is about to change everything. Will Princess Anne execute her late mother's final, ruthless command and purge the upper ranks of the House of Windsor? Or will Queen Camilla and her remaining loyalists find a constitutional backdoor to halt the Shadow Queen before the secret leaks to the world? Join the conversation. Drop a comment below. Should Princess Anne trigger Clause 7, or should King Charles step and stop her? Hit that like button if this twist blew your mind. Subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss a second of this unfolding royal crisis. What do you think is inside those 1990s files?